This video is for section 2-3, equivalent equations. Here are the transformations that you learned about in Algebra 1 class that produce equivalent equations. You can add or subtract the same polynomial to each side of an equation. You can multiply or divide the same polynomial to each side of an equation. And you can substitute an equivalent expression for either side of a given equation. It's with these transformations that we solve equations. Solving an open sentence, also called solving an equation, is the process of determining its solution set. For example, let's solve this equation for y. Let's transform this complicated equation into equivalent equations that are simpler looking. And we'll do this step by step until our last equivalent equation has the letter y alone on the left side of the equals, and there's a single number on the right. That would tell us the answer for y. First, let's do the distributive property. 2 times 3y is 6y, and 2 times 5 is positive 10. Next, let's combine like terms. The positive 10 and the minus 12 makes negative 2. You can see that it's critical to be able to add and subtract positive and negative numbers. Next, let's subtract 3y from both sides of this equation. 6y subtract 3y is 3y. On the right side, 3y subtract 3y is nothing. There's still a negative 8 left over. Next, let's add 2 to both sides of the equation. Negative 2 add 2 makes 0. On the right side, negative 8 add 2 is negative 6. Next, let's divide both sides by 3. 3y divided by 3 makes 1y, or just y. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Every one of these equations is equivalent to the beginning equation. And we created every one of those equivalent equations using properties and axioms that we discussed earlier this year. You are strongly encouraged to check your potential solution using substitution into the original equation. That wasn't so important in Algebra 1 because the equations were easier and you were less likely to make a mistake in solving them. In Algebra 2, we have more challenging equations, and so it's a good habit to check the answer to every equation you solve. The more times you check an answer, the faster you will get at that process. Go back to the original equation, which was typed, and where the letter y is, substitute the answer we think is correct, negative 2. Be sure to copy the original equation exactly. Nothing changes except where there was a letter y, we are substituting in negative 2. Now simplify both sides of the equation to see if we get the same result. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Two times negative 1 is negative 2. And negative 2 subtract 12 is negative 14. That's the left side of the equation. Let's see what the right side makes. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And negative 6 subtract 8 is negative 14. Because the left side is equal to the right side, negative 2 is the correct answer to substitute for y. Next example, solve for x in this equation. Let's divide both sides of the equation by b. This makes xb divided by b equals a divided by b. But b divided by b creates 1, and x times 1 is just x. Let's check that that's correct. In place of the letter x in the original equation, substitute our potential solution, a over b, and copy everything else the same. Now let's see if the left side is equal to the right side. A b in the denominator and a b in the numerator cancels away. A equals a. Next example, solve for z. Let's subtract b from both sides. The left side turns out to be z, and the right side turns out to be a minus b. Let's check that that's the correct result. Where the letter z is in the original problem, substitute a minus b. And copy the rest of the equation exactly as it was. Let's see if the left side turns out to equal the right side. A negative b plus b makes 0, and so this is a equals a. One more example. Find the set x such that negative 2x plus 6 is equal to x plus 4 divided by 3. This is just another way to say solve the equation. First, let's multiply both sides of the equation by 3. The reason for doing that is that multiplying the right side of the equation by 3 cancels away the denominator of 3. Next, let's do the distributive property. 3 times negative 2x is negative 6x, and 3 times 6 is positive 18. Next, subtract x from both sides of the equation. Negative 6x subtract x is negative 7x. On the right side, x subtract x makes 0, and there's still a 4 there. Next, subtract 18 from both sides of the equation. This creates negative 7x equals 4 subtract 18 is negative 14. Next, divide both sides by negative 7. And this creates x equals 2. Let's perform a check to make sure that that's correct. Where the letter x is, substitute 2. Now evaluate both sides of the equation. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 6 makes 2. 2 plus 4 makes 6, and 6 divided by 3 makes 2. The answer checks out. Let's summarize the lesson. We reviewed solving equations, which is a major part of algebra class. If you ask somebody who had algebra in high school, that's one of the things they remember doing in algebra, solving equations. Equations are solved by adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing the same number to both sides of the equation. To know which of these to do, think about what your goal is, to get the variable alone on the left side of the equation.